Hey everybody, it's Kyle in the Buck and Kyle show, the sort of okay show about horses. Once again, Buck isn't with me, but to be fair, this time I didn't even tell him I was doing an episode. But what I thought we'd do is review the dressage from every day of the Olympics and the cross country and the show jumping. Hopefully, Buck can join us on like Monday and Tuesday. He's competing this weekend at Millbrook, so I'm going to let him off the hook. However, I'm going to call this the office chair quarterback because it was watching dressage, and usually it's armchair quarterback, but armchairs are comfortable, and watching dressage is just, it should be painful a little bit. In fact, next week it might be, if I have to watch too many dressage tests, I might have to change it to the barbed wire chair quarterback. So that out of the way, it was actually an incredible day. We here at the farm, we got up and rode a couple early. Came back in and watched Jessie for the first horse of the whole competition. She did a great test on that mare. It's a very difficult horse because it doesn't have a lot of flamboyance. It was very consistent, a little in front of the vertical through the whole test. I wasn't sure how they would like that, but I think being first in the ring, they weren't sure where their marking was going to quite be, and so they were quite fair to her. She got a 51, which is her best dressage score at this level on that horse, I think by like 3 or 4 points. So that is awesome. Way to plumb it out at the biggest competition that you could go to. And then, hopefully the weekend continues to evolve that way for her. I know it's a good start for Canada. It's probably better than they were expecting at this point. So very good. Catherine Robinson was our next in the ring, and it was a little bit shaky. It's a very flashy horse, can do some great dressage, but she didn't get quite the mark we needed. So I think Canada's in ninth, which, to be fair, I would have thought Catherine would have pulled us a little further ahead at this point. And then there was some notables there. I watched a couple of those, and we went out. I rode a couple of horses. I rode one, sorry. Brought it back to the barn because there were some people I wanted to catch in the morning, tied him up in the stall for 20 minutes, went back out, poor thing, and rode him again. I think it was actually good for him because it's my one homebred who likes to give me the hardest time, and he's really turned a corner recently, and he seemed to enjoy being ridden twice, so I might have learned something that'll help me if I get to the Olympics on him. Boyd's test, I watched that. It was, it was quite inconsistent. And I was surprised that it got the 47 that it did, when later in the day I saw some tests that I thought were very, very good that either matched it or just edged him. I think Boyd did what he could. That horse gets a little bit off the bridle, and then it looked like it was just getting a little behind the leg through the test, which is makes it slightly more difficult to ride those movements. It's a young horse to this level. I think it's 12 years old, and it is a hell of a jumper. So Boyd, I'm sure, will finish out the weekend quite strong. I think that was a good start mark-wise for the States. Unfortunately, then Clark later, we took the rest of the morning. We finished what we were going to do, and then we set up shop in the living room and watched the rest of the day of dressage. So it was really cool because I haven't done that for a very long time, but it was really cool because I got to really evaluate and almost start to feel that, like it's dressage. Let's not get too worked up about it. But when Clark's horse started to just sort of lose its way a bit in the ring, you really felt that pain for him. He's probably 10 points off of the mark he expected, and I think he's more than that off of his best score. But it was a big disappointment for the States because they had such a great opportunity here with that horse, and I know Clark's really disappointed with it, but as I said to someone earlier, I think he's on a 46. He's at the Olympics on a 46 on a horse that can really jump his way around, so he's not going to get he's not probably going to get up onto the podium with it, but he should get close, and if he does everything right through the rest of the weekend, he should have a very good finish. Michael Young, that horse did a swap in the one counter, and it was that, like, I can't believe it did that, because we're so used to no mistakes happening. That was costly for him because it does such a consistent test, but it as well is lacking maybe the biggest movement. And that said, they're usually getting their marks off of the lack of mistakes, and the horse just started to draw its shoulder against his left leg, and you could just see it tipping a little bit, but I still wouldn't have expected it to swap, and then it stole it. Luckily, he only lost the last part of the counter canter. He didn't lose the flying change, so the mark, although it was affected, wasn't absolutely killed because it didn't do 2 marks for him. Sounds almost like I know what I'm talking about, doesn't it? Don't believe it. Was very, and this is sort of how I was gauging it. I watched Claire Abbott from Ireland on a chestnut horse, a 13-year-old. I mean, I thought it was great. It was so consistent. It was so fluid. The tempo was great. All of its work looked technically correct. It moved well, had a lovely outline. Both Jen and I were, I mean, just really excited watching it. And we don't see the marks while we're watching it. And I think it only got a 47 or a 46.7 or something. And I thought that was pretty unfair because I really think it deserved better looking at having to sit there and watch the majority of the test as we did. So I felt bad for her because she should be happy with the score, but I don't think it actually reflected what she deserved watching that test. So that's, it's a real shame for her. Then the two outstanding ones, obviously, Chris Burton's horse is 9 years old. We've talked about it on this show, and what a good horse it is. It is the first time I've actually sat there and watched the whole test, not being distracted by talking to people or anything like that, because I really felt like I needed to evaluate these as much as I could for the show today. And oh my God, it could do pure dressage. The trot is unbelievable. It's fluid, uphill, so technically correct. His canter got a little tight, I thought, behind the saddle, and I say that, and it's like it's still magnificent in the canter. His changes were really, really good. It might have had one that it might have just got a little bit tight behind on. There was one bobble in there, I think, but I mean, just absolutely unbelievable to watch. And it's in second at the moment, and I think that it probably could have deserved easily a higher mark than it did. William Fox-Pitt has edged it by like less than a point. And William did his usual really good test. Chris just looked the dressage picture. He sat perfectly. William's hands were a little flatter. And I'm not criticizing William because I wish I could ride like him, but his hands were a little bit flatter. They had a little more activity in them. The horse was good, but it lacked the elasticity and flamboyance that Chris's did. It was dead consistent. It had really good changes. And I think William got every mark out of it that he could, and it was absolutely enough. That said, I mean, I'm just so excited to watch him ride again at this level. He was out for the end of last year, and it didn't look terribly promising for where he would go from that point. And to have him back at the Olympics, I mean, I'm pulling for him the whole way. I think it's just great. And so he brought the ride that put him into that place. Chris brought the horse that put him in that place, and then rode beautifully alongside it. It's a bit of a toss-up to me. I think that Chris's horse had the better test, but what are you going to say? They were both really incredible. Carlos Pereira, he is a rider from Brazil, had a very good test, a couple little bobbles in there. I wanted to mention it because it is obviously in their country. I think he's on a 47. I didn't write the numbers down. I just wrote down people and horses I thought were interested. I thought he did an incredible job in the canter work. It was a little bit lacking, a little tense in the trot work, but his changes were lovely. And his brother's a TD, and actually his brother was trying for this Olympics as well. But he's a TD in South America and at some of the events up here sometimes. I know him pretty well. He's a really good guy, and they do really try, and they have some very good horses there. And I think it's really exciting for Brazil to have that performance already on the board. I watched their other rider earlier. I'm sorry, but I don't remember the name. But they're all being useful right now, and I think that you need to start the weekend there in those places. And these guys can really jump, so it's going to be interesting. If the other two riders can do that or better, by the end of the weekend, this is not going to be this could be a fairy tale for the Brazilians. So I'm really excited about actually watching dressage tomorrow, and I can't believe I had to say that. It is really giving me an appreciation for the smaller things, but it also gives me the appreciation of watching like you do at the shows when you're sending people in and you're like, wow, the marking isn't always as consistent as it could be. And I don't mean like maybe necessarily every judge on each rider, but the first block or the first half to the second half to so on and so on, the third and fourth. This time we had probably the best in the field on the flat in that early going, and in the second spot were some of the best horses in the dressage, and we're still only on and I say only, but we're on a 38. I think everybody would have expected it to be a little bit more at this point, a little bit less, on the board. And then I think tomorrow, if the marks start really ripping it up, that some of the coaches are going to regret having thrown their best rider or best dressage horses in that early because it won't maybe pan out for them as well as they were hoping. But we'll see. I do think it was a very good decision on Canada's part to put Jess first. Clayton, I think putting a horse like that in at that point where it does the technical stuff, it can earn as many marks as it can before the judges see some really big movers. Obviously, Boyd in the first spot, you know why he's there, because he's got that cross-country consistency. And then on a separate note, so that was the Olympic dressage today. We're going to do another one tomorrow. Didn't announce that we were going to do this. But just on a side note, just so you all know how fantastic I am, on the Fantasy Equestrian League, I'm leading the eventing. I'm in first amongst everybody. So you were supposed to challenge yourself and try and beat me. And last time I stunk it up so bad, I didn't see how you couldn't do better. But right now, I'm ahead. So I have to really plug that right now, because God knows the way things go, that won't last. But right now, my riders apparently are doing very well. A lot of you actually haven't even had a rider go yet. So you're probably going to come in and trump me tomorrow. But that's why I had to really make a poke right now that obviously I really know what I'm doing. And I think I should retire from competition while I'm in first. So standard, I'd like to thank God, my family for supporting me, all the fans behind me for this fantastic opportunity. And here's my trophy of a pen. I just gave that to myself, by the way. So thanks for joining in. Hope to see you tomorrow. And I'm sure it'll be interesting to watch. Bye.